Welcome back to our journey through Microsoft Access. Today we're going to work on a project in the Chapter 5 of our Access textbook. So let's go ahead and get there. In Chapter 5 we'll grab our resources, so our project data files. If you remember, I always make this small and his is faster. And we're going to do skill review 5-1. So drag it over, and then we can come back to our instructions. So go to browse, go down to skill review 5-1, and we'll minimize it or make it smaller. Alright, so in this particular project we've got a whole list of these are beginning to be advanced topics. Aha. Gotta love that. Calculated field. So we did a calculated field in a query already, but this time we're going to do a calculated field in the table itself. We can add a totals row to the table, and then we'll do field validation rules. These kind of put limits on what we can do in an entry with what we have. So let's go ahead and try and work through this and see what we can do. Alright, so get my instructions set up. If you depend upon how you downloaded your database, you may need to do a file save as so that it's there for later, but if you drug it over like I just did, then it'll be fine and it's there now. So this is kind of a big navigation pane, so I'm going to resize that a little bit just to make it smaller. There we go. And let's see what we want to do. So we're going to, and I haven't done this project before, so this will be kind of fun. So we're going to, where are we at? Database, create a calculated field called remaining hours at the end of the students table. Alright, so we need the students table. Maybe. There we go. And we're going to do it at the end, so it's going to be this field that's right here. Alright. And so the idea is that we're going to set it up by looking at how many current hours they have and subtract from 160. So if you notice, they have their credits right here. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, not too hard. If you notice, if we do click to add, we can add a calculated field from very easily. So we scroll down, calculated. What type of calculated? Well, we're going to be doing numbers, so we would say number, and it brings up builder. Now, we used builder during chapter 4, I think it was, or I forget, when we were doing a calculated field in a query, and we had to do a little more work because we had to get everything what we needed here in this middle column. But because we're in a table, it's going to let us pull these things already right here from us. But you'll notice that we're limited to only pulling things from that table that we're in. Alright, so we're going to see up here in this section here, and this is where we have to remember. So our calculated field's going to calculate the remaining required credit hours for each student by subtracting the student's current credit hours from 160. So that means that we have to start with 160 minus, and then we need their current credits. Well, we know that that's that credits field right here, so we can double click it, and that's it. Done. And now you see it's populated with what it is. And because we have this open, so 90 plus 70 is 160. That's true. You notice that I have field number 1 here is dark. So it's waiting for me to give it a name. So we're going to give it a name called remaining credits. Remember, no spaces. And then you can hit the enter key to do that. I'll go ahead and resize that field so we can look at it a little bit better. So that's kind of nice. We can save it. And then what do they want us to do now? So now they want us to display a totals row. So a totals row gives us just some easy information that we can do and see and save with what we have. So a totals row will go at the bottom. So it's not like we're adding a record. We're just simply doing a trick here. So what do we want to do here? Very easy. Display the total row and calculate the average remaining hours. So we're going to put a total row on this remaining credits here. So if you see in the total row, so what we have to do first is we have to go on this home tab, and in the records group we have totals button. See records group, this sigma is also totals. I simply click it, and then if I scroll to the end, you'll see a total button. And then ignore that, those zeros going across there. So we're going to go to the remaining credits, and in that total row, if you click it, now we can click to add a total, and we want to choose average. So, and that's all there is to it. So that was pretty easy, right? So the average student has 69. Let's go ahead and save it again. If I didn't want that totals row anymore, I would just simply click on the sigma up here and turn it back off. Alright. Now we want to add this thing called a field validation rule to the GPA field. So we have record validation rules and field validation rules. So you'll need to learn the difference. Alright, field validation means that anything that we enter into this GPA field cannot be more than 4. Okay? So the way that we do a field validation rule is in Design View. So click over to Design View, and we're going to go to our GPA field. Now we need to go down into the properties box. So remember, that's F6. And if you go down and you look, so we're looking for, you see, validation rule. That's where we're going to put the rule that we're making. So what? It has to be less than or equal to 4. So less than or equal to 4. And then if we want to be nice, we can add validation text. So what that means is, if someone tries to enter a number greater than 4.0, then they will get an error on there, and they'll get this error that pops up. Cannot be. So that's pretty easy. Save our table. Okay. We are good. We have that. We have that. And now we're going to close the table. Done with that one. You could test it if you wanted to by going over and entering another student, but we're not going to do that. So now we're going to go to the departments table. And in the departments table, we want to modify the department code, so that's our first field, so that text appears in all uppercase and with that. So we can do that by putting some coding in here. Okay? So select our field. I would go to Design View to do this. So there's our department code. And again, what do we want to do here? Go down to our field properties, and then in the format box, so that's the second one, all we're going to do is put a greater than sign. That's like incredibly simple, isn't it? So save your changes and go back to Datasheet View, And now let's enter a new record. So if you remember our first new blank record, so we're going to enter it with all lowercase, or I'm going to put LAN, and then I'm going to type languages. Did you see how that changed? I entered lowercase a and n, and then it changed it. So we can go ahead and close that up, and we'll move right along. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is an input mask in our courses table. So we've done an input mask with phone numbers. We just did the generic one. So we can do generic, or we can do custom. And this one is going to be more of a custom one that we're going to see if we can handle this. So again, we're going to do this in design view, and we're going to do it in the course number field. So down on the input mask, if I was using the wizard, I would click on that, and then I'd say open, and these would be my choices, right, if I was going to use a wizard. But I'm not, so I say cancel. So instead, I know what the codes are, what I'm going to put in here. So we're going to say greater than, because that means it's all uppercase. Then we're going to say LLL. That means 3 letters. And then we're going to do quote, a hyphen, quote, because that's text, so that's going to make that text appear. Then we're going to say 000, because that requires 3 digits, and then we do semicolon, semicolon, underscore. That's just the programming. And then we save it. And what do I want to do here? And then let's go to enter a new record. So back to datasheet view, new records. Alright, so what we expect to happen is 3 uppercase with a dash and 3 numbers. So I'm going to type ENG and 201. 201. And you notice it did that for me. So in English and Survey of American Lit, and it's 3 credit hours. And we'll close the table. I'm going to open that back up again just to look at something. So English 201. Yep, there it is. Alright. Just wanted to check what I was doing here. Alright. Now, we've created tables from scratch. We've imported stuff to do tables. We can also create a table from a query. So we could query a couple different things and then create a new table from that. So that's what we're going to do right now. So, but we have to start with the query. So we're going to go to query design. So create query design, and we want the students table, and then close. I'm going to go ahead and drag this down because you know how I feel about, I like looking at everything. Alright, and we want the stuff in this order. So student ID, first name, last name, credits, classification, and GPA. So if I scoot over one, you'll see I have it over there. Okay? So we have that. Alright, in the credits, we're going to add a criteria of greater than 123 because that's how many you have to be classified as a senior, right? Theoretically. So, greater than 123 in their quarter hour. And then under the classification field, we are interested in the people that are seniors. So senior, and then hit tab so that it puts the quotes around it for me. In the GPA field, we want greater than 2.0. So greater than or equal to 2.0. So we're looking for students who have greater than 123 credits, they're seniors, and their GPA is greater than 2.0. Alright, so let's run it. Should have 12 records. We have 12 records. Alright, good. So now go back to design view, and we're gonna break it now. Alright. So on the query tools, alright, so on the query tools design tab, so here we go, here's our design tab. In the query type group, here we go, we say make table. Right here, make table. What do we want to call it? So we're going to call it new alumni. So new alumni. And we're going to keep it in the current database. We say OK. Are you sure? Are you ready? And now we run it. And it says we're going to put these records into a new table, and you say yes. And if you notice, here's my new alumni table. That's kind of cool, eh? So we can save this query as make alumni. So we can do what? We can say Control S and call it make alumni. Alright, so now we have that query done, and now we're going to change that query. So we're going to change the make alumni query to a delete query that removes those graduating seniors from the students table, because right now they're still in the students table, right, even though they're graduating, so they're in both tables. We probably don't want that to happen. So how are we going to do this? Alright, so now let's see if we can mess this up. So we have our make alumni, so let's do file, save as, save object. Okay, so that's a little bit different. Make sure we have save object as, then we're good, and save as. Now we're going to call it delete graduates. Alright, and we're going to save it as a query, I believe. Let's see, where am I at? Yep, and then say OK. Alright, so you notice now we have make alumni table, and now we have this delete queries. Alright, so now what do we want to do? Now, when we run it, the existing table new alumni will be deleted. Well, that's not what we wanted to do, is it? We wanted to do something different, right? Because it's supposed to go back and do the other. Ah. So say no. We missed an instruction, didn't we? So on the Query Tools Design tab in the Query Type group, click the Delete button. There we go. So see, we have Make Table still here. So we need to change it to Delete. There we go. Alright. So now, let's see what happens. Now let's try run. Ah, there we go. Now we're going to delete the rows. So you see the difference there with what we were going to sabotage ourselves with, right? We were going to get rid of something. Now we're going to just delete those rows from that student table. And that's okay, so we say yes. And then save and close the query. So it's just an odd query that probably won't use a whole lot of the time, but it's an interesting thing to do. Alright, let's go back to query design again. And we're going to use the students table again. And close. And what are we going to play with this time? So this time we're going to do an update query. So all those people that were juniors are now going to be seniors. So we want the students in the students table, double click classification. Alright, is that really all we want? Create tab, query design, students, yep, just classification. Alright, in our design, in the query type, we're going to do an update button. So update is right here, update, and you see what it says, update to? So it added this interesting group, didn't it? So under the classification field in the update to, we're going to type senior, so SR. And then in the criteria is what we're going to find to update. So that would be the juniors, right? So we want to go from the juniors to the seniors. Alright. Let's run it and see. Update 6 rows. That's perfect. Okay. And so now we're just going to save it. So we already ran it. We've updated it. And we can so Control S, we're going to call it update junior to senior. Update junior to senior. Say OK. There it is. Alright, so now we want to modify this query to go from sophomore to junior. So the same thing that we just did before. So this time, update to, that should become junior. And then the criteria becomes sophomore. SO. So we should have 4 records. Let's look and see. We can just view and check what we have. Oh, we have 9 records. Junior, sophomore, who knows? We're just gonna, I'm not gonna worry about that at the moment. But, oh, that's because I'm looking freshman to sophomore. Looking ahead of myself. So, yep, 9. So we should have 9. We're good. Let's go ahead and run it. Let's say yes. We're good to go. So we're going to do a file save as and save that object. So just like we did before, save as, save object as, and this one is, so we're going to change it to update sophomore to junior, right? Update sophomore to junior. Say OK. Alright, and then we're going to do this again to go from the freshmen to the sophomores. So update to sophomore from freshman. Oops, can't do that. Go back. So when I typed FR, it's wanting to bring a whole other bunch of stuff. If that happens to you, just hit escape and then tab. And then there's our freshman to sophomore. Okay? Let's look and see. View, 4 records. Perfect. So now we will run it. Update it. Yep. Good. And then save that too. So file save as, save object. So, and then we're going to say, what was this one? Update freshman to sophomore. And OK. And then we'll close that query. So, bunch of little queries that we can run at the end of the school year there, right? Very handy. Alright. Now we want to do the next one, is to create a query to append incoming freshmen to the students table. Alright, so create, and what are we going to do here? Query design. We want the incoming freshman table, and then close. And from here, what do I want to do? So we're going to, we want all of the fields, so I can just try. Come on now, play nice. So you could double click them all to get down there, or you can double click it. So theoretically, depending upon your computer. Now let's see if we can drag them all. No. There we go. There, it drug them all in there. So you may have to mess around with that a little bit. Alright, so that's just another way. Alright, in the query group, up here in this query group, this time we're going to append. So we're going to use the append button. And you see here, in the append dialog, oh, this is funny. Expand the table name and select students. So, give us a dialog. Why are you not playing nicely with us? Sometimes these just don't work out how we want them to, so we just have to kind of mess with it. So, append. Ah, there we go. Table name, we want the students. Right? So go down to our students table and then say OK. Alright, we can go over here and just check it. 7 records, looks good. Alright. And now let's run it. Yes, we're going to add 7 rows. We're good there. And then we can save and close the query. So close it, save it, and we're going to call this append incoming freshman. And OK. Alright. Alright. Almost done. Next thing we're going to do is a crosstab query. So we're going to just look and creates this crosstab query to the total number of classes per course. Okay? So what we have. So here we go. So we're going to use query wizard this time. So query wizard, and you see crosstab. Say OK. And now here we go. So what do we want here? We want to, in the first step, click the queries. So queries. Okay. And then we want courses by department. So courses by department. That's that first one. So we're good there. And then next. Alright, what do we want here? Use the department name. Where are we at? As the column heading. So which do you want to see as row headings, right? So department name. So let's move that over there. To count the number, now this is so confusing, right? So queries, courses by department, and then next. Use the course number and course as, here I skipped a place. So let's get that back there. Use the course number and course description. So course number, course description, there we go, as the row headings. In the available fields list, double click course number, then double click course description, click next. Okay, we've got those. Now use the department name, alright, department name, Next, let's go back. We'll leave that there just generically. Let's go back one more. Alright, course number next. We'll see if we mess this up or not. So, department name. Okay, I think we're good there. And then to count the number of classes for each course, verify that class code is selected, which it is. In the fields, so that's over here in the fields group, right? And then count is selected under the function group. Yes, we want row sums, that's good. And then next. Alright, accept the suggested name and finish. How confusing is that, right? But you can see 3 classes are accounting, how many classes we have of the different things. So it's kind of, I've never in anything I've ever done, I've never used a crosstab, but you know, and we're going to close that query. But I could see its usefulness. It's not anything that I would probably do in a regular. Alright, so now we're going to go back to the freshman class offerings query. So freshman class offerings query is right here. And on the home tab under view, generally we use design view and datasheet view, but we can also use SQL or SQL view. And that looks just really weird, right? So when you're doing that, for us, you just in a homework assignment, just follow the instructions and you'll be fine with where you have to enter this at. Alright, so 10 records, yeah. So select, okay, so here's our code. So in the SQL window, where in the where clause in the last line, change the 1 in the like one to -1 to 2. So that all we're doing up here is we're just going here, backspace, change it to 2. And then we can run it. So theoretically 15. So now you just notice that 15 records and the course numbers are all 2 levels, right? If I paid attention to it before, we would have seen that differently. We're going to save it to sophomore class offerings. So file, save as, object, and we're going to call it sophomore class offerings. So if you want to be slick, you could just come up here and just do this. Sophomore class offerings, and you say okay. And there's so if we go here, here's our freshman, or go back here, freshman. See my freshman, there's my 100 classes. Here's my sophomore, here's my 200 classes. So that's all we've done. So very easy, very straightforward. I should have compacted and repaired that, huh? Bad. So remember, when we get ready to leave, compact and repair. Luckily I didn't sabotage myself and have any errors. So, well, that concludes Chapter 5. Chapter 5 has a lot of interesting things in it. Some things that you may see again if you're a CIS major, and if you're not, just be glad. Alright, talk to you later. Professor Crow beaming out of Access.